Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, ready to continue our build of the Rocketarium Phoenix model rocket. This is, of course, a scale kit, which is a nice little touch, which explains some of the extra details that I'm going to be putting into this. Now, the next step is to attach the fins. Now, typically, we would need to cut out a little template, draw some lines on a wall, or using the door frame to help. And fortunately, we don't have to do that. In fact, we don't need to make any measurements whatsoever. I'm going to double check just for fun, but as mentioned previously, there are tiny little etchings in this tube, which might not even be visible in this video, but you can hear them at least. Yeah, like I said, I can scratch across them. Anyway, they're there, and those are my template lines. The good news is about this that because they're there, it saves me a lot of trouble, and it should also make alignment fairly easy, one would hope. Now, I say that, of course, this will be ugly, but who knows? That's part of the fun of building a model rocket, I guess. All right, so we're going to start off. Before I do anything else, I'm going to make one quick measurement. It says that the larger fin should be 2 3/4 inches from the end. Now, hopefully that's where the little marks start, but I'm going to double check that just to be sure. And lo and behold, that's precisely where it is, right there. So that's the back end. This is a nice little touch, by the way. These kits are a little bit more expensive than Estes kits on average, but you do get some nice touches from time to time, like that baffle system and having all this stuff marked for us. All right. So in any event, let's do the usual business. I think I'm going to put the big one on first. So I'm going to use the same approach that I usually do, which is 2 layers of wood glue here. And I am going to really need to clean this nozzle apparently, but I'm going to apply it here, spread it out a bit, and then wait while the glue starts to tack, and then apply that second layer for strength. Yeah, this nozzle is apparently a little clogged, which is fun. Quite clogged. Well, I'll fix that later. But for the time being, I'm going to get myself a piece of paper towel too, because I really do not need glue getting all over this, especially because the lines are so narrow and hard to see as it is. All right. That's probably been long enough. Probably help if I had the bottle of glue open. On goes the next layer. Again, keep it thin here. You don't get a reward for having more glue. It takes longer to dry, and it's not going to give you more strength. If you really needed more strength, you need either a different manner of mounting things, like a through the fin construction, which we unfortunately don't have, or a different glue. All right, glue is ready. Time to attach. I'm going to try to hold it at both ends here. The etching is actually very nice because it goes from the start to the end and it doesn't go any farther. I'm going to try to move my hands back as much so I'm blocking as little of my light as possible. That looks like the end point, and the start point looks like it should be about there. Now, I did not see the last moment of me putting this fin in place, so it's entirely possible that I'm going to have to adjust things here. But before I do that, I'm going to try to hold the fin in place for about 30 seconds here. And that should give us enough tack in order for the fin to not flop over the moment I check to see how well I align things, which would be irritating at best. Now, the downside to all this is, if I were drawing these lines, I would have extended them much further so I could see ahead and behind of the fin, and my glue is right on top of everything. So it's entirely possible, and in fact, it is definitely the case that I can't really see much here, which is unfortunate. Just makes the need for applying that applying the fin in the right place the first time all the more important. But I can at least look and see if it's in line with the back fin, which it appears to be. And I don't see anything sticking out the front or the back, nor do I see it coming out the side, so we're going to assume it's pretty good. Now I'm going to check to see how perpendicular it is, and it looks pretty good. Yeah, so good enough. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the big fins on first, preferably not doing that. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to use that because that's basically empty. I'm going to use a ring of tape, and I'm going to use sanding block to hold things in place. The back fins should be fairly easy to do because, again, everything's lined up, but I should even be able to check the alignment internally by looking down the rocket to see how I did there. So I think the best bet here is to do all 4 of the big fins first, check alignment while it's still ever so slightly tacky. If I need to make any last minute adjustments, we'll do that. I believe this isn't exactly how the instructions really want you to do it. Yeah, it says, make sure the fins are aligned, make sure the glue is dry before gluing the next fin. I'm not doing that exactly. Remember, because I want to be able to make last minute adjustments while the glue is not fully set. But I have to say, it is nice to not have to draw the lines. The little etchings are not quite as useful, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the alignment is at the end of this, and then we can make some final judgments based on that. All right. Rotate this. In fact, I think I'm going to do. No, it's all right. This is pretty well tacked, so I don't think it's going to flop over. But I really need to be careful not to bump anything. Okay, so holding the back end, checking for my alignment with the tubes right there, and then down comes the front. And that looks, well, we'll see. The other thing you can do, and I can't see through my own hand, but you might be able to see, is check that the end points or the front points, doesn't really matter which, are basically at the same spot before we get too fixated on adjusting things, because that should be a fairly easy check to make. You know, if one fin is obviously far ahead of the other one, then that needs to be adjusted sooner rather than later. Hopefully glue is tacked enough there. I'm checking front and back. They look pretty good. I don't see any indication that I am out of the sides either. I'm going to use my fingernail here to spread this glue out a bit. Okay, and again, once I've done that, I should be able to see a little bit better if there are any spots like where I obviously missed. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, I really want this shock cord out of the way, so I'm going to try to ball it up. And sometimes I put a piece of tissue paper in here. That might not be the worst idea to just hold it in place, but I'm going to put it vertically while I prepare the next fin. Vertical's good. Gravity right now is trying to pull the whole fin downward in line with how I've attached it. So it's not terribly, it's not likely to just slide right down the rocket. I've never had that happen. I suppose it's possible, like if you had an incredible amount of glue and it was very runny, but that's not the case here. So that's good. Of course, if you have it, the way I had it before, the fin was vertical like this, but if it's lying on its side, the fin's like this, there's a lot of gravity that wants to pull it this way, which that's like the failure mode of the fin, to come off to snap to the side. So if we can avoid that, we probably should. All right, more glue. more. So I think the goal for this video should probably be to get these 4 fins on and then pick it up from there. The back fin should be easier, knock on wood, to do. All right. I think this one was the most recent one I've done, but I am going to, ooh, look at that. There's some work that needs to be done on this little bit of fin. You can see it's like feathered a little bit. That needs to be sanded. All right. Anyway, this one's going to be trickier because, well, I can't just leave it lying on its side here because fin's in the way. So that's kind of a bummer. I'm going to try to apply it like so. Roll it this way this time. Yeah, and this is, of course, more difficult because I need my left hand, or at least one of my hands, in order to hold the rocket off the ground. So I'm not getting, it's not going to be quite as good a scene, perhaps. All right, let's double check. Looks like it's pretty well lined up at the back. It might be a little bit forward. No, it's all right. A little off. This looks like, yeah, this is, it's a little bit, it needs a little bit of a shift this way. And I could see that in a variety of different ways. I couldn't see the actual etchings, but I could see it relative to the lines back here, so that was helpful. And looking down the rocket like this, it was askew like this, so I could see that. And it doesn't feel perfect, but it feels better. All right, one more, and then we will do a final check on alignment. The final check on alignment is actually a little difficult because typically the main fin is all the way at the back, and I can use either lots of different instructions, have a little template inside where you can check fin alignment. I have, since there are 4 fins on this, the grid pattern in my cutting board is very good at doing that. But the problem here is that my fins are all significantly shifted up the rocket body, which means that it's going to be harder for me to identify if they are indeed at the right alignment, which is kind of a bummer, but there's not much you can do about it. The other thing I was thinking of that I could do is I could keep a lot of these tubes of painter's tape around. I could elevate this off the ground and give that a try. It would just need to be high enough so that the bottom fin isn't touching the ground, right? Which is taller than that. So I'm gonna give that a try. I would just need to have something else over here, and maybe the sanding block plus a tube of tape would be ideal. Give that a try. Yeah, that'll work, I guess. I mean, it's rolling for probably because it's on the sanding block, which is not a flat surface. How about this? That'll do. All right, good enough. All right, more glue, which I seem to have bumped this a little bit, or I picked it up wrong, and I took a little bit of the glue off in places where it shouldn't have been, which is annoying, but easily fixable. All that extra time should mean that the glue is quite tacky, so it should be pretty easy to hold in place. All right, last one. Down it goes, and hold it in place. One other thing that I probably neglected, but it would not hurt to do, maybe not might happen in between this video and the next, I don't know, is remember I said one of the edges of one of these fins was a little shapen or damaged or something. After the glue sets here, in previous builds, we used CA glue, that'd be crazy glue, to harden the joint, not the joint, the fin edge. That might not be the world's worst idea either, just to strengthen that. And oops. Ooh, that's pretty bad. There we go. Okay, so I might do that. That's something worth thinking about. But regardless, now it's time to check for generalized alignment. I'm going to hold it vertically. Try to get. Geez. Usually, I don't have a shot cord yet at this point. All right. I'm going to try to align it and look vertically down the tube and see how well the fins line up with the grid lines, but I don't think that's going to tell me much, honestly, because it's so far away. I could try holding it the other direction, but remember there's an engine hook down here, and that's obviously not stable. So my ability to hold it where it ought to be is practically zero, which is a little frustrating. So here's what I'm going to do to check the alignment instead. I'm going to hold it vertically, and I'm going to check the two fin sets that are opposite to each other, and hopefully they are basically in or at, make a straight line, so at a 180-degree angle. I'm also going to just check, looking down the barrel for each of these, that they are straight and not askew. That shouldn't be that big of a problem because of the little lines. But the being at 180 degrees straight up and down across from each other, that is something that could be a little bit off. And as far as I can tell, it looks pretty good. I am kind of hoping, because I can't really check it very well right now. All right, so I think that's probably about as good as we're going to get for the time being. Between now and the next video, what I'm going to do is, here's my bit of paper towel. I'm going to just shove this in here. I'm going to flip this upside down, and there we go. It's not quite in the whole way. I'm going to let this dry. I might put fillets on, but probably not. I think I'm just going to let it dry and pick up the next video later. All right, thanks for watching. I will see you then.